Hi everyone, my name's Emma. I thought I'd take this nap time opportunity to show you one of the Stand Firm zip pouches that I've been sharing online lately and what we have a pattern for up now. I'm gonna just warn you ahead of time, it's my first time ever making a video like this. 2, nap time may be cut short, so this may be a 2-part video depending on whether baby agrees. And 3, I'm thinking I'm just going to keep going whether I mess up or not, so bear with me. So you're going to start off with your lining fabric, which I designed and ordered this off Spoonflower. Now I have some up there that you can order yourself from there. They're $5 for a test swatch like this, and they're about $2.50 if you buy them in larger amounts each. But you can also design one yourself. I have a post up on the blog on how you can put your own Bible verse in your own background fabric, or you can just not use one of these lining fabrics, use any other type of fabric that you'd like, maybe from a special shirt that you have or that a loved one had, or something that you hand embroidered yourself or designed, or just something fun that you like peeking out at you whenever you unzip a zip pouch. So I have this here. It comes in an 8x8 square, which is exactly what we need for this project. I also have my exterior fabric already made. Now you can just have a single piece of fabric if you want, 8 inches by 8 inches. This one is called a 1/4 square triangle that I used 2 different sides of a piece of denim to sew up. That's a quilting square. I usually use just a 1/2 square triangle, so I take, and this is all in directions in the pattern, but I take just 1 square of fabric, cut it in half, sew the opposite sides together so that you get this nice contrast between the lighter color and the darker color. And we have a 10-inch zipper. A longer zipper is better. You can use an 8-inch zipper, but a longer zipper is better just because it's easier to top stitch, which I'll show you later. And then I also have 2 smaller pieces of fabric. They're 4 inches by 2 1/4 for our binding pieces, which we'll do at the end. A couple other things you might want to have is a zipper foot for your sewing machine, scissors, rotary cutter, iron, and ironing board, and my trusty Wonder Clips. So coffee is optional, but I like to sip it while I sew. So let's get started. First, you're going to take your exterior fabric, lay your zipper down on top of it along the top edge, kind of centered. You don't have to be too exact because this is the first one that you're doing, the first stitch that you're doing. So here along the top edge you'll have the right side of the zipper tape down to the right side of the exterior fabric, and we're going to baste that in place using a 1/4 inch or a 1/8 inch seam allowance, excuse me. Now, if you've done zippers before, you can just make your zipper sandwich as you usually would, stick your lining fabric down on top of this and sew it all together. But I'm going to try to follow the pattern exactly as I wrote it. So okay, now we basted that on with a really long stitch. Those will be stitches you don't want to see later. Now you put your lining fabric right side down on top of that. Line up all the sides just so you have your lining fabric, exterior fabric, right sides together with that zipper in between on the top. Pin it in place. And now this time we're going to do our 1/4 inch seam allowance with your regular stitch length. So just stitch along as you regularly would with a zipper. I forgot to put my zipper foot on, so I'm going to do that now. So stitch down along the top side of the lining fabric. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is open this up, pull the zipper up, and I'm going to press this and this down so that they match up wrong sides together. Not sure if you can see this or not, but... Just make sure you don't melt your zipper, because that's a big bummer if you put your iron on top of the zipper itself. Okay, now I'm going to top stitch down just about 1/8 of an inch away from the edge of the fabric. There we go. I make my stitch a little longer for this. Whatever you like to use for top stitching is good. Now you might notice I don't backstitch at the beginning or the end when I'm putting the zipper in, because those threads are going to be encased in the side seams anyway. So it just takes a little bulk out of there not to top or backstitch. Okay, so we've top stitched along this edge. Now, this is kind of fun. It's a different kind of way than usual to put a zipper together. We fold the exterior fabric up like this. So right side of the bottom to the top side of that zipper tape and pin in place. Just make sure those edges are lined up nicely. Okay, now I'm going to do a basting stitch here too. And again, if you have done zippers before, you can put these 2 steps all together, fold your lining fabric up and just stitch it like that. But I'm going to baste this guy just to hold it in place so I know I'm doing my lining fabric correctly. Hopefully I'm not getting my hands too much in the way here. Okay, so we have that basted in place. I'm going to change my stitch length back to my usual. I do a 3. It's different on everyone's machine though. Now I'm going to take the lining fabric. You have this kind of in a circular, kind of like a cocoon type of thing. Take your lining fabric and fold that up So your sides are going to be like this. They're both folded on themselves. Line it up nicely along the edges and then along the top long edge of the zipper tape and pin it in place. Or clip it. I love these clips. They're a game changer. Okay, I have my regular stitch length now, and I'm going to sew just down here along the long edge of the zipper tape and lining fabric. Now through this whole thing so far, you can leave your zipper shut. And now we have our guy like this. We're going to reach in and unzip our zipper all of the way. Now as I'm saying this, I'm really hoping this is actually recording. I don't actually know. Oh. Okay, so this might be a little tricky. But just wiggle it open and it should come. Oop. Not if you put it on top of the lining fabric. So yeah, make sure that it's open all the way. There you go. Pull it all the way open, stick your hand in there and just grab it. Okay, now we're going to flip this in on itself so the wrong sides are together. So you can see here you have the beginning of your zip pouch. It's starting to make sense now. Lining on the inside, denim on the outside, or whatever fabric you're using. Kind of roll these down so that the side you just sewed is away from the zipper. Now, I'm going to iron along here. It's really good to use the edge of your ironing board here when you get to the end because it's close to where the zipper is connected on itself. So I'll be right back. Okay, now we're going to top stitch this edge down. Now this gets a little tricky because your zipper is still connected down here. What I like to do is I start on the open edge and then just kind of go slowly when I get down. I'm going to take off mine. You don't have to do this, but I kind of like having that little extra space, so I take off my little box there and have some space to work with. Okay. I like to go nice and slow on this one. So you can see as you start to get down to the edge, you might have to take this, kind of flip it up a little bit in on itself. So the exterior fabric's folded in on itself. That will help. So you can make a really good choice at the beginning and put all of your fabric further away from the end of the zipper. So start your fabric closer to the open edge of the zipper. I didn't do that. So it's a little tricky at the end, but we got it. And remember, you don't have to worry about top stitching or back stitching at the end, because it's going to be enclosed in the seam. Okay, so now we have our zipper pouch. You can see how it's going to end up. Now what you do is fold it back on itself so that the exterior, the lining fabric is on the outside. You're going to close your zipper halfway, not all the way, because that's really sad if you get to the end and you've closed your zipper in on itself. Fold it down so that your zipper is in the middle, all the way across. Now, it's a small enough thing that you can usually eyeball it and get it right. Sometimes I'll take great care, line it up on my mat, and just double check to make sure it's in the middle. Yeah, looks good. If you're using a zipper like me, the edge of your zipper tape will be about 1.25 inches in from the edge of the pouch, but your zipper tape may be a different length, so don't take my word on that. So I clip both sides down, do the same thing to the other side. Okay. Flip it down. Now we are done with the zipper foot. So you can put your regular foot back on your machine. I'm going to adjust this just a little bit here. So make sure your lining is lined up as best as possible with your exterior fabric. If you didn't do a good job lining it up at the beginning, that's okay. You can just sew in a little bit further and make sure you still catch everything on the sides. So just make sure there's no wrinkles or creases in there. All right, now we're going to sew down these short sides. You can use an 1/8 inch seam allowance. And regular stitch length. All right. So sew down both of these short edges here. Now I do back stitch at the beginning and end here. If you're using a nylon zipper, you just sew right over the teeth, which is kind of nice. A metal zipper, please be careful. Don't sew over the metal teeth. Get one that's the right length. I have the exact dimensions in the pattern, but so that you don't sew over the teeth, but just sew over the edge. All right, and then go and do that to the other side. Okay, so you have your zip pouch now like this. Now what we're going to do is fix these edges so that they're nice and sealed. They won't fray then. What I do is I trim off here, and here. Make sure your zipper pulls in the middle, because if you cut that off, you're going to start all over. So I'm going to trim down these sides. You can use regular scissors, you can use a rotary cutter. Just get everything nice and squared up. A rotary cutter does not want to cut my zipper, so get the scissors out for that. All right, now what I like to do is trim some of these threads before we put the binding on. Okay, so the binding, we're going to take these two smaller pieces of fabric, fold them wrong sides together, whichever side you choose to be your wrong side on denim. That's what I like about denim. So fold these together lengthwise so that you have one long 4-inch strip the same length as the edge of the pouch. You're going to press them, just fold it in half. Okay, so you have your two pieces of fabric folded in half on themselves. If you're a quilter, it's like binding. Now, line it up. Line up the raw edge, so the folded edge is down here. Line up the raw edge along with the raw edge of your zip pouch. If it's a little bit longer, that's okay. You can trim it down. Mine's a little bit longer, and it's a cut too long. It's about 1/4 of an inch longer, so I'm going to trim off the edge a little. Okay, so all these raw edges here are lined up. I'm going to clip it down. Then I'm going to do the same on the other side. My raw edges here. So there's going to be quite a bit of bulk when you're going over the zipper. I do fine with a regular needle in my machine, but you may, if your machine struggles, you might want to get a denim needle or just a bigger one. Now I'm going to sew down along the short edge. I'm going to sew a 1/4 inch away from the edge. Back stitching at beginning and end. All right, I'm going to do the same on the other side. So you see here that the raw edges are all lined up, and then we have this little flap here. I like to take just a second to cut off my strings. Just makes it easier at the end. Okay, then you take this flap, these two flaps, you take them, fold them up, over, and around to the front. So fold it over. It's called, we're binding it in. So you have this flap here. We folded it up, over, and around. And clip it in place. The clips are really handy here if you have clips and not pins, but you can hold it in place with your hand if you don't feel like using clips. I'm using white thread here so you'll be able to see where I sew, but just use matching thread. Okay, we're going to do the other side, fold it up, over, and you're enclosing, you're encasing that raw edge so that this pouch will last a long time. I like to do things that last a long time. If you're going to take the time to make something, I like to make it last. Okay. We got it. And I'm going to stitch pretty close to the edge of that fold here, probably about 1/8 of an inch away. I like that my machine has an adjustable needle, one of my favorite things about it. But you can just move your fabric wherever you need to too. Okay. Now again, this is going to be a little bit bulky in places. So just take your time. See, my machine didn't like that guy right there. So one thing I did here that I probably shouldn't have done, I used denim as my binding fabric. You should really use something kind of lighter weight, like a quilting cotton would be good. Then you won't run into this problem. Oh, my machine does not like me today. Okay. Oh, poor machine. Okay. All right, so lost my needle. That's all right. It really isn't that bulky. I'm not quite sure what's going on. Probably time for me to change a needle, so don't be scared if you see this. All right, now I'm going to sew on the next side, and then we'll flip this guy out and show you what it's like after I rethread my machine. All right, now let's see if it's going to let me do the other side. Oh, it's not going to let me. Well, I suppose this is what happens first time you make a video, huh? That's all right. Hand crank it through. Don't use denim like I did, and you will be just fine. All right. Now, you've sewn down your bindings. Now you can take your zip pouch. I like to open it further now. Flip it right side out. Use your fingers or whatever turning tool you like to use to kind of press in those edges. Got some strings sticking out. I'll trim those. Go to the other side. Press it out, trim out any threads. Okay. Now you have your Stand Firm zip pouch. You can go ahead and press any wrinkles that came in the turning process. Love seeing this. So my machine was just bugging me, right? Open it up and I see, don't be discouraged. So fun. Okay, Thank you so much for joining me and for your patience and for supporting me in my adventures here with sewing with reclaimed fabric. Really love the support that you all give me and appreciate each and every one of you. Please share with me if you decide to sew up one of these and give it as a confirmation or graduation gift or just as something fun for someone to have. Hope you have a great day.